everyone, welcome back. My name is Average, and we are doing part 2 of our Python tutorial series, where we go from being a complete beginner to coding and Python in general, to being an intermediate and knowing how to write basic programs. So first things first, we are going to go to our Python tutorials folder, and I'm just going to create a new folder. You don't need to do this. You can reuse the file from last episode, and we're going to call it part 2. And I'm also going to open this inside of VS Code, like so. And now we have our folder. So we're going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it main.py. Obviously, you don't need to do this if you've already followed along with the last video, because you should already have a main.py. All we had in that file was hello world, and this did a really basic output to the terminal, which basically just said hello world. Simple as that. Anything that we put inside of here, we can actually get it to output. So if we put hello Mars, for example, and we just say py main.py, hello Mars is what we get. We can do this as many times as we want, and each time we do this, it will actually print a new line. So we can say goodbye world, and now it'll say hello Mars and goodbye world on two separate lines, like so. Now, what we are putting inside of these print functions are called string, and strings are basically just pieces of text. Anything surrounded in double quotes, as you can see here, is a string, as well as single quotes in Python also count as a string. So you can use either double quotes like so, or single quotes, and both of these will count as a string when you put text inside of them. Now, we can create what is called a variable, which I like to think of as a placeholder, and this placeholder we can change the value of. If you ever learned algebra in school, it's similar to that. So we can give a variable any name that we like. We can call it greeting, and we can do greeting equals, and the equal sign here will give this variable a value. So when we do double quotes, we're giving it a string value. Right now, it's an empty string. So if I were to print this, and yes, we can put it inside of here, we want to remove the quotes as we are referencing the variable. If we have quotes inside of it, it'll just say greeting, because we are creating a new string with the text greeting inside of it. So we want to get rid of the quotes, and now when we run the program, we get nothing because we didn't put anything inside of here. So let's put hello world, like so, and as you can see, now we get hello world. So this is a very basic example of a variable. Now there are also other types of variables, and all of these different types of variables are called data types. So a string is an example of a data type. We can give a little note for this variable by putting a hashtag, which denotes that this line will be a comment. Anything put here on this line will not be run by the interpreter. So if I were to put print greeting up here, as you can see, that won't happen. This is just a note that we can add to anyone looking over the code. So we can say this variable holds a data type of string, or str in Python. Python has a few numerical types, but we're going to be looking at two: ints and floats. So int, or integer, is a whole number without a decimal point, and this number can be negative, this number can be 0, and this number can be quite large as well. We also have floats, and floats can hold decimal points. So these are not whole numbers. They can also be negative, they can also be 0, and they can also represent scientific notations such as this. We'll give these two new values now so they're a little bit more distinguishable. This is an integer, or an int, and this is a float, and it's also just known as a float in Python as well. So to recap, an integer is a whole number, float is a number with decimal points. And we can also print these inside of our print statement. As you can see, when we print num, we get 10, and if we print num2, we will get 25O. What if I wanted to include all three of these variables into my print? Well, it's pretty simple. What I can do is I can say greeting, and then we can add a plus. And what this will do is append another string onto it. Let's say we want to add a space to separate our hello world and the number that we're going to add here. So we can say num. When we run this program, you'll realize we actually get an error, and it says we can only concatenate str, not int, to str. And that's because num is obviously a different data type. It is an integer. So what do? Well, we can easily combat this problem by converting our num to a string by typing out the word str and surrounding num inside of quotes. Now this is essentially a type of function that will convert num to a string. However, this is a bit of a different type of function, and it's called a constructor. but we will not be looking at this until a little bit later in the series. Anyway, let's run the program now, and you should notice we get Hello World 10. And the program works as expected. Now we can do the same thing and we can add num2. And if we do num2, you'll notice we also get an error with the same issue. And we can fix it by casting or converting the variable to a string. And as you can see, we get Hello World 10 and 25, all separated by spaces. Now in Python, we can also do arithmetic. So let's say we wanted to add 10 and 25 together. We can give num3 a new variable, num plus num2. Now let's print out num3 and see what the value is. 35.0. Interesting. So what you'll notice actually is if you ever do any operations between a float and an integer, there will be a decimal point. So for example, if I get rid of the decimal value for num2 and I run this program again, you'll notice that we get 35. What if I want this to be a whole number? Well, I can simply just surround this with int, and now the value will be truncated and it'll represent 35. Pretty cool. I can also do the exact same thing with an integer. So let's say I wanted to convert num to a decimal value. We can say float num, and we'll get 10.0. Now let's continue doing some more operations between these two values. Something we can do as well is num2 take away num. And this will take away 10 from 25. If we print that, we should be getting 15. Perfect. We can also use a asterisk or the star to multiply two numbers together. So in this case, we're doing 25 times 10. And this value should give us 250. And it does. We can also use a slash, and this will divide the two numbers. So in this case, we are doing 25 divided by 10. And that will give us 2.5. We can also do double slash, and this will give us the number without any of its remainder. So that will be 2.0. We can do a similar thing with the stars, and this will give us an exponent of one number. So that is a very large number. So let's do something a bit easier for ourselves. Let's do 3 and 3. So this will be 3 to the power of 3. And this should give us 27. Perfect. We do get 27. So this is how you do exponents. So in this case, it would be 3 to the power of 3. Or if written out on paper, it would look like this. Or, for example, just basic exponents. Now we're going to look at one more operator, and this operator is called the modulus operator. Now, what this operator does is it gives the remainder when one number is divided by another. For example, if we were to use the modulus operator for this, we would have a 0, because there is no remainder when you divide 3 by 3. As you can see, we get 0. So what happens if we divide 6 by 3? We also get 0, because 6 divided by 3 would be 2. There is no remainder in that equation. Now, what happens if we do 7? Now, this will give us a remainder, and the remainder will be 1. We get 1, and that's because when we divide 7 by 3, we are going to get 2.333. So a good way to understand the modulus operator is, well, we have 7, right? And we're trying to divide it by 3. So we know that 3 can fit in here 2 times, because 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now, 7 divided by 3 is 2.33, and on and on. And so we understand that actually 3 fits into 7 2 times, and then there is 1 left over in this equation. So for example, 7 take away 3, 4. Take away 3 again, and that will be 1. So 3 fits into 7 perfectly 2 times, and then we get 1 left over. So that's all the modulus operator does, is it divides, and then it finds how many left over there is. So for example, this could be good for us finding even numbers or odd numbers. So for example, let's say we want to find out if a number is odd or even. We can do 10 modulus 2. So if it is 0, it will be an even number. If we put in an odd number, it will be 1. So the modulus operator is a bit difficult to explain, and I heavily encourage you to play around with it a little bit on your own and just figure it out, because I don't think my explanation is very good, and it might actually confuse you. I'm not sure. That's going to be the end of this video. We covered a few different data types: strings, integers, and floats. We also covered how to print those to the console, how to concatenate strings, aka adding on variables into a print, along with some basic arithmetic operators. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for the next one.